Okay, and that takes us to our first visit into the world of one of the bigger selling artists of the 2000s, and of course there were plenty sold in the 90s as well. This could be our first time with Usher, and
Usher,
in
Usher,
yeah,
Usher.
Usher, and in the opener you heard a little bit of "You Make Me Wanna," and now you're going to hear a little and cut those numbers.
Usher's My Way comes in at number 4,558 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 468 in 1997, number 28,867 of all time. It's Usher's third highest rated album behind 2001's 8701 and 2004's Confessions. It did not. My Way did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Usher is ranked number 2,313 of overall artist rankings. Yeah, I'm gonna say like yeah, best ever albums. Not they're less of a fan of R&B than I am. I think.
That's true. Yeah, they really are. They might that you're like an R&B evangelist compared to best ever
Yeah, I think
albums.
so. Yeah.
So, in case you were wondering, Matt or Josh,
Mm.
Usher is Usher's real name. He is Usher Raymond IV, born on October 14th, 1978. He is a singer, a dancer, an actor, and a songwriter, and is also the self-proclaimed king of R&B, which I always love self-proclaimed anything. It's
Self-proclaimed.
like yes, others have called him it too, but it did say self-proclaimed in several
Who's
instances.
his competition there, John? Would you say for the king of R&B?
Well, it depends on how we define solo R&B, right? Are we going back to like the 70s? Because then I would think that like Marvin Gaye or like Otis Redding, Sam
Yeah, it's
Cooke, I
kind
think
of a ballsy move to
they'd
be
have
like,
I
yeah,
think Michael Jackson could theoretically have a say. You know what I mean? There's a
yeah.
lot of different people who could be in there. And then if you want to take it out, guys like, Luther Vandross and Teddy Pendergrass, there's a lot. Anyway,
Mm.
but his first album was released in 1994 when he was 15, and he is still releasing albums to this day. Was the Super Bowl performer several years ago as well. This album had three singles on it, including a number one single, Nice and Slow was number one, and top two single in You Make Me Wanna, as well as My Way. So he had three top two hits on this, a number one and two number twos. Uh, he has four children. We're going to talk about that later because it's a little bit tragic what's going on there. But boy, Usher's biography, I knew a little bit of it, but it's interesting. I'll go a little further than where this album is, just because you'll want to know. So Usher was born, as I said earlier, in 1978 in Dallas, Texas. But he spent the majority of his early years in Chattanooga, Texas. He grew up with his mother, and then later a stepfather. He had a half brother because his father did leave the household when he was 1 years old. And looking for him to have something to do, some direction, his mom took him to the church choir in Chattanooga when he was 9 years old. And there they discovered, yeah, you know what? He can sing. So they decided to run with that a little bit. And once they found that he could sing, he started to join a singing group. And they kind of, I don't want to say they saw opportunity in it, but they decided to kind of move into career mode with Usher singing. So they moved to Atlanta, Georgia, as he was hitting double digits. And actually, interesting enough, while Usher was like releasing his first album and leading up to this, he actually attended North Springs High School, which is a public high school. So just imagine if you're at public high school, like the three of us were, right? And like you have a famous R&B singer in your graduating class. I thought that would be pretty cool along the way. So like, who sits next to you in homeroom? Ursher sits next to me in homeroom. So thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, at age 10, he joins an R&B quintet, excuse me, called New Beginning, NU as the new there, which a guy by the name of Daryl Wheeler put together. They do 10 songs, and then they released an album called New Beginning featuring Usher Raymond IV, which was available regionally and by mail order, guys. And that's how you know it was the late 80s and like 1991, right? Uh, However, his mom, not thinking it was the greatest experience, kind of pulled him out of the group, and the album kind of stayed regional and in the background till 2002 when it was re-released nationally by a record label called Hip O Records, HIP, dash O, so not like hippo with two P's, right? Hip O Records. Usher is going around meeting different people, and here's where things get really interesting for Usher. At age 13, he meets a guy by the name of AJ Alexander at a local talent show in Atlanta. He was Bobby Brown's bodyguard, and he would just take Usher around and have him perform at talent shows and parking lots and like cookouts. Like he's just taking him around, just Bobby Brown's bodyguard. Just says this guy has some talent. And eventually he decides to get a guy by the name of Bryant Reed. You may recognize that last name. You could probably put two and two together who Bryant Reed is related to in the R&B world.
Reed?
If you were guessing L.A. Reid, yes, you are correct. So he is a A&R representative for LaFace Records. You probably, in listening to this album, realize there is a Babyface connection to Usher in this one as well. There is. So he's an A&R representative from LaFace Records, and he gets him to perform on Star Search, something that I thought would have been a bigger part of the evolution story for more of the artists we cover, because I know there's a lot coming who were on Star Search. I think like, yeah, oh, and I know like Lauryn Hill, right? Famously, it was at the Apollo and stuff like that. But there's going to be a bunch who are on Star Search. But yep, Usher was on Star Search. What song do you think he sang on Star Search?
Michael
in
Jackson?
1993.
93?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Frank Sinatra's My Way?
No.
He sang
No.
End of the Road by Boyz II Men on Star Search. And it goes well. And it goes so well that Usher's mom leaves her job to manage his career. And he ends up getting a song on the 1993 movie Poetic Justice, famously starring, I believe, Tupac and Janet Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like I said, there's a lot of twists and turns for Usher at this point, and they get a little more interesting. Here's probably the most interesting of all of them. When he's getting ready to record his solo album, Usher lost his voice because he was going through puberty, so his voice timbre changed. L.A. Reid, who was in charge of his career, suddenly said, well, without that voice, right? Like, I don't know there's much we can do. And he just stopped the album and considered dropping him. Usher was desperate. So he basically was pleading for another chance. He says he'd figure it out. And L.A. Reid did not know what to do, but he decided to throw a Hail Mary pass to save Usher's career. And when you need a Hail Mary pass to save your career, what better way to get that than to be sent at the age of 16 years old to live with Sean Puffy Combs at his house to attend, quote, flavor camp at his house. So if you're wondering, at the ages of 16 and 17, Usher spent a considerable amount of time living at the Puff Daddy compound attending flavor camp. And Usher has made reference to this at times because I think you guys may be familiar with the fact that Usher was sort of very much tied to the beginning of Justin Bieber's career, right? And Diddy famously was in that story as well. And I'll just say that if you YouTube or, look up videos of Usher talking about his time at Diddy's place, it stands out for the fact that there's like a smile and a sigh and a nod and not much detail, we'll just say. So, yeah. So that's where he is at Flava Camp. My favorite thing that I saw, like, to describe this was Usher said that he quickly adapted to Puff Daddy's lifestyle. However, he described it as the hardest period of his life, that he had to knuckle up and figure shit out in New York, was how he described it. So anyway, during this time, right, LaFace is really, so while he's at Flava Camp, right, he's getting his self-titled debut album released, and it is produced by Sean Puffy Combs. There's a little bit of Babyface on there as well. And it goes out. It does reasonably well. It's number 25 on the R&B and hip-hop album charts. And it has 3 singles that get limited play. But as of December 2008, it had sold 500,000 copies. Obviously, with what Usher sells later, that's a pittance, of what he was doing there. It was controversial, though, because it had a lot of sex jams on it. And the problem was Usher was all of 15 years old at the time that he was doing this. So LaFace, once again, they're like, this 15-year-old whose voice changed, who's singing about sex jams, is this really kind of what what we want. And Usher's mom at this point jumps in and just starts having him go around and doing talent shows and playing wherever they take it. And Usher starts to get a bigger fan base, and L.A. Reid's like, well, this kid might have something afterwards. So while this is happening, Usher's graduating from high school, and one of the big things he leans into is his skill as a dancer. Before that, he was sort of a singer with the dancer in the background. They're like, we're going to make him a double threat, which I would say good decision in terms of the folks making that decision. It sounds like that was Mama's decision as well as Diddy's decision a little bit in Flava Camp there. He also meets Monica, who is on this album as well, and duets. She's another Atlanta teenager. And they play the 1996 Olympic Games, and they get on the benefit album on that. So he's showing up on these. He's on the soundtrack for Kazam in 1996, the Shaq vehicle. But where it really, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Where it really breaks is he develops a friendship around 1997 with Jermaine Dupri. It's weird that a teenage boy is running into this many high-profile producers, though, isn't it? Like, he's around, like, the Reeds, Diddy, Babyface, Jermaine Dupri, and he's all like 17 years old at this point, right? Like when this is happening. But anyway, the Jermaine Dupri one ends up being a very fruitful one. It seems like it's a positive one. And he becomes the main producer on this album. There's 3 other producers on this. And he co-writes and produces most of the tracks for My Way. And pretty much this one is a hit from the beginning. First on R&B radio, and what they would call urban radio or black radio, right? But quickly he transitions over to like mainstream pop radio, and he goes on tour. And he's a triple threat. He's on Puff Daddy's No Way Out tour, which in 1997 is a big freaking tour, so he's right out in front on that. He's winning.
Lil' Kim was on that one. I think we covered that last week.
All of the people on Bad Boy were on that one, right? Along with people who were adjacent, right? He's playing with Mary J. Blige. He's the opener for Janet Jackson on the Velvet Rope tour. We haven't done the Velvet Rope yet, but that was a big album. And yeah, he has a concert album released in '99 where he's doing just all kinds of crazy duets. He's doing duets with Lil' Kim, Jagged Edge, we haven't covered yet, Shanice, which is like, feels like it was 10 years like later than I remember Shanice being around in the world. Early Twista is on that one, so there's all kinds of interesting things on that live album. He's also starring on Moesha at this point and getting his first film role in The Faculty. So I mean, Usher is like all over.
Wow.
1998. He was also in She's All That, and appeared in the live adaptation of Geppetto on the Disney Channel. So, yeah, that's what Usher's doing. But, Usher, as time would go on, we're going to cover another Usher album later, so I won't go into it. He's played the Super Bowl. He's one of the highest selling R&B artists of all times. He's got tons and tons of other top singles, not just by himself, but collaborations. Unfortunately, one of the tragic things is that Usher has had 4 children, but unfortunately 2 of them have passed away, sadly enough. Both of them in bizarre instances. One unfortunately was involved in an accident on a body of water, and then the other one, it was sort of a drowning incident in a pool. So there was some tragedy. I know, along the way. Pretty brutal stuff, but he Usher kind of pops up everywhere, right? He was on TV shows where he was a judge. He's got a fashion line at different points. He's hosting. He went through a period where he was hosting lots of things like the iHeart Radio Music Awards, and he's just kind of popping up as a multimedia presence, right? He's the type of guy that can go into an environment that's largely R&B and hip hop, and the next day be at the Kennedy Center, right? Which is what happened back to back one day, right? He does movies that are all for all audiences, right? They could be as niche as for young people or for black audiences, but also can do sort of be the sidekick, right, in different things. So he's kind of one of those omnipresent guys. He was on The Voice. So that's a little bit of what led up to the origin story of Usher. It kind of was an interesting road from like 10, from like when he found out he could sing at 7 to like releasing this album at 19, right? Those 12 years, a lot was packed in there. So uh, I'll start. We always give Matt the first take on R&B and probably scare off our YouTube audience because he doesn't always love them and stuff like that. I'll be curious to see what Matt thinks of this one, but I'm going to give Josh the first take on this one.
Well, I feel like Usher has been around most of my life because he's, close in age to me, it turns out. Close enough at least. And I remember You Make Me Wanna being on the radio all the time, and I especially remember the video because it's hard to overstate that like dancing was like a key part of like his Usher's like identity, and that's kind of, I feel like, what elevated him in my mind, is seeing his videos and seeing his dancing ability. I knew all the singles on this, but I never listened. I don't know if I've ever listened to an Usher album, actually. I just know him from being around and all of his singles. But I enjoyed this album. I feel like it's, technically it's not his debut album, but I feel like it's a debut, statement record for him. Like Drew Hill and 112 and other artists R&B artists that we talked about recently, I do feel like it's the next generation of R&B. He's got a great voice. It totally like fits his personality, and it's not. He's got like, at this time he's got like such a baby face, and I feel like his no pun intended, but I feel like his like vocal range matches kind of his look, if that makes sense. I really appreciated that the album was 40 minutes. I feel like it says what it wants to say, and it doesn't tack on any extra bloat or anything. I mean, there is an extended version of Make Me Wanna, so I do feel like they were kind of trying to pad it out a tad, but I think this shows his ability to do up-tempo songs and slower songs. I like the appearances of like Lil' Kim and Monica on different songs. Lil' Kim's on Just Like Me, the second track, and Monica's on Slow Jam. Both of those songs are good, and I don't feel like there's too much filler on it. I do feel like the first half is, for being 10 tracks, I think the first half is a bit stronger than the second half, but the songs, are short enough and highlight Usher's ability that I feel like it was just a kind of a breeze to listen to, and I didn't have any kind of the same sentiments I had on other R&B records, even like the Drew Hill record, which was, felt very extended, and purposefully or not, but this is just like nice, concise, like pop R&B. The production is really great and clean, and it's just an enjoyable kind of time. So thumbs up for me on this one.
Yeah, you know how we've covered many R&B albums, and I've said like, oh, there's not enough variety on here, or like it's all too slow, or just kind of like it drags on for me or whatever. So this is not that. This is what I want.
Oh, I knew you were gonna like Usher, Matt. Yeah.
This I like this from the beginning. I like the whole album. I didn't think that, and I'll also props to Usher, the length, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And with that 40 minutes, over 5 of that is an extended version of the opening track, which is fine. It's a good track. I don't know if you need it, but like it was an easily listenable album.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a lot of great stuff on here. It's got some of the ballads. But I was fine with those because I thought they were pretty solid, but they were just peppered in with beats, right? There's really good beats, and some rapping too, right? He's got Lil' Kim on here, doing some rapping. The comeback song with Jermaine Dupri was really good as well. So it's just the variety here, and the production, really was what drew me in. So musically, I found this way more interesting than many of the R&B records that we have covered. and that variety really stood out to me. Yeah, interesting. Kind of like, a couple of the songs were like, what is it? "One Day You'll Be Mine." I think that's got it's the Isley Brothers, right? So it's got
Mm-hmm.
the it was a good day, sample that
Oh yeah.
so Ice Cube used. So that was very recognizable. As was it I no what was the song? Oh, it was "Come Back" with that also had like, it kind of sounded like the California Love piano that
Mm.
that beat from that. So although it wasn't exactly the same, but it was very similar. That was the California Love that I wish that Tupac had put, the version that I wish he put on his record, because I didn't comment on that record with you guys, but I do agree that they put on the inferior one.
Wikipedia says "Come Back" contains a sample of "Woman to Woman" by Joe Cocker, so maybe
I
that's what
wonder if that, yeah, I wonder if that, whatever that is, that dun 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 dun, I wonder if
yeah.
that's the same thing that they used for California Love. But yeah, I thought his voice was great. I just really enjoyed the whole thing. It was just a very, good variety, good beats, pretty melodies, good. He's got a very good voice as well. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I would definitely go back to this. I'd say that this is probably one of my favorite. It could be my favorite R&B album that we've covered. I'd have to go back and look at all the other ones, but this one certainly stood out as being at the top of that list. So yeah, thumbs up for me. Really good stuff from Usher here.
Yeah, I vividly remember this album because "You Make Me Wanna" was a great lead track, and then "My Way" kind of had that start-stop tape recorder type of vibe that was unique as a style of creating a song. And "Nice and Slow" is just, a classic sex jam, right? Like, good one,
Mm-hmm.
and a very cool song that was on the radio. And it does sound a little bit like a Brian McKnight song. I always thought "Nice and Slow" sounds like Usher doing Brian McKnight. We haven't covered Brian McKnight right now. He's another guy that maybe king of R&B, maybe not that level, but was definitely an R&B guy in
Mm-hmm.
the 90s. But yeah, this is a lean album, about 36 minutes of tracks, and then a bring back, or maybe 35 and a bring back. I like the bring back even at the end because it's an extended version of it. It's kind of like how you did the remix off the album, and they just happened to include the remix on the album, right? Which was a common thing. A lot of times when you'd hear an R&B album, right, you'd have a different version of it, and Usher just decided to stick it on instead of going to search for it like you would have had to for that Drew Hill album we just covered, the self-titled. But it was good to see Monica on here. We haven't covered a Monica album or song yet, which is kind of crazy because she has some pretty freaking big songs in this era. I believe we do get to her very shortly, but it's interesting how the two of them kind of went up the charts at the same time, and how many young, vibrant performers there were in R&B at this time. You think 97, right? You've got Usher here at 19. Monica's probably 16 or 17. Aaliyah still is about a 17 around this time. Brandy, right, is around that 18 year old mark. So there's all of these super talented young folks that would be big for, in some cases another 4 or 5 years, and some like Usher just continue to be big
Mm-hmm.
for a long period of time. So it's cool to see that youth infusion, especially considering these were all very close to age contemporaries for myself, like Josh mentioned. Just a really well crafted album. You can hear the Jermaine Dupri on this. You can hear the Babyface. If you said what's the production style before I even read it, I would be like, this is kind of like Jermaine Dupri meets Babyface. And then I was reading about the production, and it's Jermaine Dupri largely was on it with Babyface putting the. I'm like, yep, that's pretty much exactly what this sounds like. And I like that production style. Both I the more I go back and listen to the Jermaine Dupri stuff, the more I feel like he was able to take parts of the Southern sounds, but instead of it being sloppy or too unfocused, right? He had the gift of being, he and Timbaland, right, were the two people that were able to take Southern hip hop and kind of make it palatable to my East Coast ears, if that makes it. To an extent, Outkast will get there too. I wouldn't say the album we covered, ATL Aliens, is that, but like I know what's coming and it's there. So it's kind of like the South hitting the mainstream, like syncretically with the rest of the world. And there's that sound on this album. As Josh mentioned, Usher as a dancer is part of the appeal. Certainly, knowing female friends, Usher had a way of attracting the ladies as well. Like he had like an interesting sex appeal, right? Where he was definitely like horny, but not unapproachable, right? Would be kind of how I'd describe him, like a little bit, boy next door, but with just enough edge. He kind of is like an R&B LL Cool J, I would say, and like early LL Cool J in terms of what his aesthetic is. And while there's good ones on this, there's still more good to come. So thumbs up for me. I enjoyed this one. And in an era of 58-minute albums, it is nice to get a 40-minute album.
Yeah.
And boy, 37 minutes to 45 minutes is the sweet spot for most genres of music, but like R&B in particular, it's the best length. So
I like the album cover too. I like the ski cap with the goggles.
Yes.
Yeah, like is he like on a like
that's
kneeling
very
on a staircase
1997.
Yeah.
Big chain, like some sort of like looks like he's like in an industrial warehouse, big chain, ski goggles with like a "hey girl" like look on his face. Yeah, would be how I describe it.
Quick cleaning of the stacks. Usher's kids are not dead. It was his stepson who died, and one of his kids almost drowned. He did not actually drown. So all of his kids quite healthy. Actually, my niece met Kayvon, I think it's Kayvon, his son. They had like a arts camp at a college a college program that they went to. So she got to perform in a ensemble with Usher's kids. So that was kind of cool.
I would guess he views his stepson as his kid, though, Matt. So I feel bad that I.
Well, you said there were 4 kids, and I believe all 4 of his actual kids are alive. So yeah, but his stepson, yes, it was still hard for him. But like his 4,
I was processing when they said 4 kids that his stepkid would be stepson. So I apologize.
He's got 4 others, and yep.
Well, very sad, and
no, for sure.
Best wishes to him, even though it was a while back. It's, understatement of the year. It's never anything that you would hope to happen.